Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse, everyone. I am Brandon Chadwick, and today we will be doing a debrief on Spoon's story. We will be doing key takeaways and the things that we want for her going forward, and we do have a content warning for today as we do discuss childhood sexual abuse and grooming in this episode. And for those of you who have not listened to Spoon's story yet, here is a short summary of Spoon's story. So Spoon grew up in a home where after her parents separated, she felt responsible for managing her parents' emotions. She learned to put her own feelings aside because loving one parent could upset the other parent. And she was sheltered, lonely, and didn't really have a lot of examples of what healthy relationships looked like. Then, at 13 years old, an adult man entered her life online. He listened to her, gained her trust, exposed her to sexual material, and eventually became one of the people teaching her what sex, relationships, and womanhood were supposed to look like. And at age 16, she drove across state lines to meet him, where she was sexually assaulted. She initially struggled to recognize what had happened as being rape. And after that, Spoon continued trying to figure out who she was supposed to be. She developed what she calls the quote-unquote cool girl identity, someone who needed very little, was always adventurous, never said no, and could prove her worth by being desirable and easy to be around. And she entered modeling, struggled with drugs and alcohol, reached a point where she no longer wanted to live, and eventually found recovery through treatment in AA. And she learned a lot about accountability, slowing down, and questioning her own thinking. But some of her relationship patterns still existed. And years later, she became involved with a man who claimed he was getting divorced. She became pregnant and eventually discovered there was no divorce. And looking back, Spoon could see how many of the beliefs she had carried for years, like staying quiet or keeping secrets, ignoring her needs, and avoiding questions, had really made it easier for someone to exploit her. And that realization caused her to really start examining where those beliefs came from and whether she actually wanted to keep living by them. And a lot of the stuff we're going to be discussing today isn't just about the abuse that occurred. It will also be about the internal mechanizations of Spoon, who she was, her belief systems, and what made her more susceptible to grooming and abuse. And the first thing on our list is grooming made the predator the person that Spoon went to when they are the person who was causing the harm. So really early on here, Spoon is 13 years old. She meets this person online, this adult online, who becomes someone that she trusts. He listens to her, he comforts her, he feels like a friend, and he becomes the truth teller in her world. And then he exposes her to sexual material that leaves her confused, very uncomfortable, and as she says, feeling dirty. And who does she go to with all of these feelings that she's feeling? She goes back to him. And this is a really important part of grooming, because grooming isn't simply about getting access to someone. It's also creating a relationship where the person causing the confusion, the person who is causing the harm, the person who is the assaulter, becomes the person you rely on to make sense of everything. And Spoon was already feeling lonely. She already felt different from other kids. She didn't feel like she had many people around her who understood what was happening inside of her. So when something happens that she doesn't understand, the relationship had already been constructed in such a way that this abuser, that this groomer, this predator felt like the safest person that she could bring all of this stuff to. And that gives this predator an incredible amount of power. The abuse victim comes to the predator, and the predator is able to explain everything away. So when Spoon said that she didn't feel comfy, the predator groomer suggested there was something abnormal about her, because a quote-unquote normal girl would respond differently. So Spoon was already insecure, and he was much older than her, and she believed he understood the world better than she did. So he's become this truth teller. So Spoon is really being trained here not to trust what is happening inside her, but her body and emotions are telling her something. But the grooming predator here is telling her that those feelings mean something completely different. So what Spoon is being taught here is to override her internal signals for the benefit of the abuser. The next thing on our list is the quote unquote cool girl identity taught Spoon to abandon herself. And this one is a societal norm. We see it in movies all the time. It is called the manic pixie girl. Spoon describes developing the idea of the quote unquote cool girl. And for her, the cool girl didn't need very much emotionally. She was tough. She was independent. She didn't get scared. She didn't say no. She was willing to go along with whatever anyone else was doing. And it's a persona that is somewhat celebrated on screen, but it is a very harmful persona to show. Because if this becomes your identity, the cool person who never needs anything, boundaries can really start to begin like it's an actual character flaw in you. And that becomes extremely dangerous around someone who wants more and more and more from you, because they don't necessarily have to force you every single time because of this societal norm. So Spoon talks about trying to be whatever the people around her wanted her to be. And eventually she became so disconnected from herself that she struggled to know what she even actually liked. So being the quote unquote cool girl can actually be very harmful, as an abuser can really take advantage of you with this type of identity. And this is a big societal norm issue too that we have that, needs to be undone. And the next thing on our list is people pleasing became a search for self-worth. So Spoon describes believing that if she could do enough of what everyone wanted, eventually everyone would like her. And if enough people liked her, maybe she would finally like herself. So it becomes a search for evidence that you have value. If this person likes me, maybe I am okay. If this person wants me, maybe I am attractive enough. If I can keep this person from leaving, maybe I am lovable. If I can become successful enough or desirable enough or useful enough or just easy enough, maybe I will finally reach the point where I will feel worthy. But the problem with outsourcing your worth like this is that your worth will eventually be in someone else's hands instead of you being in charge of your own worth. So with an abuser, they can take it back immediately and control you. From rejection, silent treatments, withholding, disapproval, your value will start to feel like it can disappear once you put it in their hands. They can then take it away. Thus, an abuser can control you even more when they give it back, then taking it away, then giving it back, then taking it away, then giving it back. And when you're in this type of cycle, you might start to perform harder. You might start to change yourself again. You might start bending over backwards and giving more. And Spoon eventually describes feeling like a shell of herself after going through this over and over and over again, because her worth isn't in her hand. The point we're trying to make here, trying to keep your worth in your own hands, is very important, because once it is in the hands of an abuser, they can do anything that they want with it. And then you're just on a push-pull. They can drop you, bring you back. It's a real big intermittent reinforcement that is going on. It creates more of a bond. You want your value back. That's a relief to you. It's very addictive. And on top of that, an abuser might be trying to destroy your worth even more and more and more and more, even if you did come into this relationship with low self-worth that you were putting in their hands. If they can take that even further, that's their benefit as well. And the next thing on our list is slowing down gives you time to compare someone's words with their behaviors. And when Spoon moved into a small community and became involved with AA, she started seeing the same people repeatedly. She could watch them over time. And for perhaps the first time, she began comparing what people said with what they actually did. And I know this sounds like a simple idea, but it's really important in Spoon's story because so much of her life had been driven by the words of other people. So slowing down changed all that. You can just simply observe them and watch. Does this person who says they respect boundaries actually respect boundaries when I put a boundary up? Does this person who says that they are telling me the truth, are they actually telling me the truth? Does this person who says they care about your feelings actually care about your feelings when your feelings might not be convenient for them? So everything that they are telling about themselves, does this continue to match what you see a week later, 3 weeks later, 6 weeks later, 6 months later, or a year later? So time is allowing you here to see patterns form, and that is what we want. So Spoon here let things just unfold to see how people would treat her over a long period of time, to see if words would match actions. And this is just a really different way of approaching relationships once she had understood this concept. So the things that I want for Spoon going forward, the biggest thing I want for Spoon going forward is the freedom just to continue discovering herself without having to perform for people. And Spoon spent so much of her life trying to figure out a correct way of being. I don't want the next phase of Spoon's life to be about finding a new perfect version of Spoon. I want Spoon to be very curious about herself. I want her to figure out what she actually enjoys, what actually makes her laugh, who makes her feel safe to be just herself, what friendships feel like they could be reciprocal, what happens when you say no and allow the other person to have whatever reaction that they're going to have. What does love look like when you're not performing or feeling like you're auditioning for someone? That goes same for friendships as well. And for a long time, other people were telling Spoon who she should be. And I just want her to keep giving herself enough time, enough safety, and enough permission to be whoever she wants to be. And I want that for all of you too. And I hope you found this debrief episode here, educational and validating. And if you want to be a guest like Spoon was on our Survivor Story episodes, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com. Click on the guest form, fill out the form, and we'll go from there. We also have a support group at our website with Zoom meetings every Wednesday nights, Thursday afternoons, and Saturday nights. And we have a newsletter at our website with a free workbook for every new Survivor Story that comes out, all at narcissistapocalypse.com. And that is it for today's debrief. So for myself and Spoon, we hope you have a good night.